You've spent hours dialing in your amp, tweaking your pedals. You just wrote what might be the best riff of your life. You hit record, and you get that. You know what a great guitar is supposed to sound like. You've heard it on your favorite records. The problem is the sound in your head, and even the sound coming out of your amp isn't what's making it into your computer. You've got the gear, you've got the passion, but somewhere along the way there's a disconnect, and it's killing your sound. I'm going to show you 5 simple but absolutely critical mistakes that are murdering your guitar tone. And more importantly, I'll show you how to fix them right now so you can finally get that pro quality sound in every single recording. The gap between the amazing sound you hear in the room and the disappointing one you hear on a playback is one of the biggest frustrations when you're recording at home. It can make you feel like you need to run out and buy more expensive gear, more plugins, or that just maybe you don't have that magic touch. I promise you, that's not it. More often than not, the biggest improvements in your guitar tone don't come from a new $1,000 amp. They come from fixing a few basic mistakes in your process. These are the kinds of things that no amount of fancy gear can ever fix. They have to be handled at the source, with you and your guitar. We're going to break them down, one by one. I'll show you exactly what the mistake is, why it's wrecking your tone, and give you a simple, actionable solution you could use today. By the end of this, you'll be ready to capture those professional, powerful guitar tones you've been chasing. Let's get into it. The first and maybe most common reason for a bad recorded tone is something so simple that we forget about it all the time. Your guitar strings. They might feel fine, they're not broken, so what's the big deal? The big deal is that old strings are an absolute tone killer. Over time, all the sweat and oil from your fingers, plus tiny bits of dirt and dust, get stuck in the windings of your strings. This gunk literally deadens their ability to vibrate. Old strings lose all their brightness, their high-end sparkle, and their harmonic richness. What you're left with is a dull, flat sound that will get completely buried in a mix. No amount of EQ can bring back high frequencies that weren't captured to begin with. On top of that, worn-out strings struggle to stay in tune and can cause intonation problems, meaning even if your open strings are in tune, the notes get more and more out of tune as you play up the neck. The solution is simple. Change your strings before you record. But here's a pro tip. Don't change them right before you hit record. Brand new strings are often overly bright and zappy. They need a little bit of time to stretch out before they'll hold their tuning. A great rule of thumb is to change your strings a day or two before the session. Play them for about an hour, break them in. This smooths out that initial harshness and makes sure they're stable, giving you a tone that's bright and clear, but also balanced. This next one sounds so obvious, but its impact is so destructive, it has to be said. You're not tuning your guitar nearly enough. And I don't just mean tuning when you start your session. I mean tuning between every single take. Even the best guitars with the fanciest tuners will drift out of tune. A change in temperature, the humidity in the room, or just how hard you're playing. Any of these can knock a string slightly sharp or flat. When you're just playing by yourself, a tiny bit of drift might not be a big deal. But in a recording, especially when you start layering multiple guitar tracks, those tiny differences get magnified. A slightly out of tune guitar creates this ugly, dissonant chorus effect that just sounds amateur, and it's a nightmare to fix later. A track might sound fine on its own, but when you layer it, it's going to fight everything else in the mix. The fix is non-negotiable. Tune before every take. Not every other take, not just when you think you hear something wrong, every single take. Get a quality tuner pedal, make it part of your signal chain, and build muscle memory to glance down and check your tuning right before you press record. It takes 5 seconds, but it'll save you hours of headaches. This simple habit is one of the clearest lines between a professional session and a frustrating one. You just played the perfect riff. Your timing was on point. Your tone is great. But the recording is full of this weird, dissonant ringing and low-end rumble you can't seem to get rid of. The problem probably isn't what you're playing. It's what you're not playing. Unmuted strings ringing out are one of the biggest sources of mud and noise in high-gain guitar recordings. Electric guitars, especially with a lot of gain, are incredibly sensitive. When you play a note, other open strings can start vibrating along with it, creating a mess of unwanted noise. This sympathetic resonance will muddy up your tone, destroy the clarity of your riffs, and create a layer of slop that makes your whole mix sound unprofessional. If you add effects like delay or reverb, the noise gets amplified, turning it into a washy, uncontrollable mess. The solution is all in your muting technique, using both your fretting hand and picking hand. With your fretting hand, use the fleshy underside of your fingertips to lightly touch and mute the strings next to the one you're playing. For instance, when you fret a note on the D string, you can angle your fingertip just enough to mute the G string above it. Your index finger can also lay flat across the strings to act as a mute when you're not playing. At the same time, use the palm of your picking hand to rest lightly on the strings you aren't playing, especially the lower, thicker ones. Combining these two techniques gives you control, but for an ultra-tight studio sound, many pros go even further. For a tricky take that doesn't use certain strings, you could use painter's tape to mute them completely by taping them down to the fretboard. Another popular tool is a fret wrap, which is a soft band you place over the strings, usually near the nut, to dampen the sympathetic ringing and kill unwanted noise. This one could be a tough pill to swallow, but it's crucial. You can have the greatest gear in the world, but if your playing isn't tight, your recording will never sound professional. A lot of players fall into the "we'll fix it in post" trap, thinking they could just edit their way to a perfect performance. And while editing is a powerful tool, it can't fix a fundamentally sloppy take without making it sound robotic and lifeless. Sloppy takes have inconsistent timing, uneven dynamics where some notes are picked way harder than others, and all sorts of little noises like fret buzz or missed notes. These things might get hidden by a wall of distortion when you're just jamming, but they become painfully obvious under the microscope of a recording. A great recording has to start with a great performance. You have to give your mix engineer, even if it's just you, a clean, powerful, and consistent take to work with. The solution here is a mix of practice and patience. First, practice your parts with a metronome before you even think about hitting record. Really internalize the rhythm until you can play the part cleanly over and over. Aim for precision. Second, don't be afraid to do multiple takes. Seriously, the best guitarists in the world don't nail it on the first try. Just keep recording the part until you get the take that feels right. One where the timing is solid and the energy is there. Comping or combining the best bits from several different takes is a totally normal studio technique. A tight performance is the foundation of a great mix. This is the classic mistake, especially in rock and metal. When you're chasing a heavy, powerful tone, it's so tempting to just crank the gain knob to 10. In your bedroom, by yourself, this can feel and sound absolutely massive. The problem is, what sounds huge in isolation often turns into a fizzy, muddy mess in a full mix. Excessive gain compresses your signal like crazy, squashing all the dynamics and articulation out of your playing. It blurs the attack of each note, making palm mute sound loose and single note runs feel undefined. You think you're getting a thicker sound, but what you're really getting is a cloud of harmonic mush that has no clarity or focus. When you start layering multiple guitar tracks that all have too much gain, they just fight each other, the bass and the kick drum, creating a jumbled wall of noise. The solution is almost always to use less gain than you think you need. A good starting point is to set your gain knob around 11 or 12 o'clock and see how that feels. You're looking for that sweet spot where you have enough saturation for aggression and sustain, but not so much that you lose the percussive thump and clarity of each note. Remember, a huge part of the modern heavy guitar tone comes from layering multiple tight, clear guitar tracks, not from one track with an insane amount of gain. You can always add more saturation later with plugins if you really need it, but you can never ever take away distortion that's already been recorded. So there you have it, 5 of the most common mistakes that are holding your guitar tone back, and 5 simple ways to fix them. We've gone over everything from basic maintenance like changing your strings to dialing in finer points from your technique and gain staging. Even just one of these tips will make a huge difference, but using all of them together will completely transform your recordings. Now I want to hear from you. What's the biggest recording challenge you faced? Was it one of these 5 mistakes or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below. I read all of them and I'd love to help you out if I can. And to help you even more, I'm including a link to my free guitar DI recording guide in the description, so be sure to grab that. If you found this helpful and you're serious about getting pro-level guitar tones, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss out on more videos just like this one. Let's do a quick recap. We got rid of our muddy tone by using a fresh set of strings for clarity. We tuned before every single take for perfect pitch. We muted all the unused strings for a clean performance. We recorded tight and precise takes, and we dialed back the gain for more punch and definition. It's not about having the most expensive gear. It's about using the gear you have the right way. These fundamentals are everything. Stop letting these simple mistakes sabotage your hard work. Start applying these techniques today, and you'll be on your way to capturing the powerful, professional guitar tones you've always wanted. Now that you know how to record your guitars properly, the next step is to mix them. To learn my approach to mixing quad-track rhythm guitars for a massive sound, you can click the video on the screen right here.